All right, guys, your tip of the day for today is going to be a quick one, I think, unless I find something to ramble about. Taking notes when you're taking classes. So whoever you're learning from, you go to a class, you learn what you did today, do the drills, whatever, and then you write down your notes. Okay, you write down, remember these key points or whatever. And that's a great idea. It's very, very good for yourself. When you write something down, it tends to stay in your brain more. It's like you meet someone and say, hey, my name's John. 3 seconds later, like, what the hell was that guy's name? But if you're bringing people into a class and you're at the desk and you're like, what's your name? John. Write it down, John. You're much more likely to remember it because you wrote it down. You might never look at those notes, ever. But by writing down with your hands and doing the letters and visually seeing what you're writing down, it's more likely to stay in your brain. But what I wanted to, that's pretty obvious. So I think most people know that. If you write something down, you're more likely to remember it. What I wanted to mention was, don't treat your notes like hard factual law, okay? Always remember, although it's a great idea, and I highly recommend taking notes, but always remember that you are the one who wrote those notes down, not your teacher. Right? Your teacher didn't come over to you and say, okay, these are your notes for the day, did he? Or if he did, then that's fine. But I'm talking about you've taken a class, you've listened, you've learned, and then you've written down what you learned that day. How many times have you or me as a teacher, how many times have I as a teacher been in a class and I'll stand up the front, I'll say something, I'll explain something, and I'll even have someone come and ask me a specific question about that, so they think they've double checked. And then the next day, I'll see them doing the posture, and then I'll ask them, why are you doing it like that? And they'll say, oh, that's what you told me to do. So that's what they've written down in their notes, but they've misunderstood what I said. So your own notes, although great, they may involve it is your interpretation of what I said. So I guess the only way to be 100% sure would be, but most teachers are not going to have the time to read everyone's notes at the end of a class, you see. And even if they do, they'll probably go, oh yeah, that's good, oh yeah, that's good. They're not really paying attention and checking. If you did that, then those notes should be fine. So if I taught you something, you wrote your notes down, and then I went, all right, so you've written this, this, and this. Yep, that's what I told you. Now you can sort of tick that box and say, right, so I know these notes, 100% good. I got them double checked. But if you are the only person who's written down those notes, I've had so many times in the past where, like good students, even advanced students, not just beginners who don't know anything, advanced students, there is so many times, any teachers out there will know this, where people, and as a student, I've been a student where I've misinterpreted something that someone has said. No one is above this. Everyone occasionally misinterprets things. So unless you actually get your teacher to physically check the words you've used, even if you go and double check, you might double check and say, look, I just want to double check. So you said exactly this is here in line with that, blah, 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 whatever is the question. But then you go and write down. That's still you putting it into words. So it should be okay for the most part. If it's something very simple like make sure your heel is in line with your toe, that's pretty simple. But other more complex things, there's more interpretation there. It's more difficult to put it into words. Therefore, the words you write down, you may not get it exactly correct. So that's all I really wanted to say, is that use your notes to memorize stuff. Go back to your notes to check stuff. But if you go to a note and say, oh, now that's strange, everyone else is doing it differently, but my notes say that this is how it's done. And I've actually seen people do that in the past, where there'll be a group of people, WTBA instructors or whatever, they're all discussing something, a certain movement, and let's say 3 of them never took notes, or they don't have their notebook with them, or whatever, they don't have any notes. But one of them does have his notes and he's got it all written down. And I'll see them there, and I've seen this a few times happen, where the one that has the notes is saying, no, it should be done like this. The other three are saying, no, it should be done like this. And I usually sit back, if it's at a camp or something, I'll sit back and watch for a little while, see if they can figure it out for themselves. I just like to watch sometimes instead of always just going straight away and telling them what's what, because it's good for people to try to figure stuff out rather than just get told what to do all the time. Anyway, whoever the person is with the notes, they will then say, no, look, there. See? Boom. I was right. Look, I've got it written in my notes. Therefore, it has to be correct, doesn't it? That's where I'll step in. If that person happens to be wrong. Sometimes they might be obviously correct and their notes might be correct. But just because you wrote it down doesn't mean that that note is 100% without flaw. And it's happened a few times like that. And I've had to then jump up and say, all right, well, no, I think you've obviously written that down. That's your interpretation of what you thought Earl said. But actually what he meant was this. And then the problem's solved. But yeah. Another thing, your teacher might have genuinely said something incorrect as well. So even if he did check what you wrote down, it doesn't guarantee that it's correct, because no teacher is perfect. The amount of times I've said to people, you should do this, and then ages later I've realized, oh, you know what? Actually, I think that was the wrong advice that I gave. And my father did the same thing, and his teacher before him did the same thing. All teachers make mistakes. We're just human, especially me. So yeah, even if your teacher specifically wrote that down, it doesn't guarantee that that is correct. So what's the way to guarantee something's correct? Well, I guess it's kind of like science. It's correct until someone proves it wrong. I guess that's the only way you can go with it, doesn't it? So like science isn't 100%. You can't be nothing is 100% guaranteed that this is it. Because how many times throughout history has this been the definitive thing, but then someone's gone, oh, actually, no, it doesn't happen because of that. I've worked out the next step. And it's the same with martial arts. We're constantly developing. Doesn't mean we're trying to change things or that we think, oh, they were not as good as us and the previous people or anything. It's just accidental, constant development. We tend to, this has turned into a ramble, hasn't it? We will tend to find that through years, not just through years, but generations of practice, someone will pick up on something that no one else did. Because again, all those previous people, they were only human. They did 90% of the groundwork and gave us so much great stuff, but maybe they missed just a couple of things here and there. Because they had so much other stuff that they were looking at, they missed that one little bit, And I have it happen to me so often where I'll have a student ask a question, and I'll be like, but hang on, surely if this is happening, then that would happen. And I'll go, oh, you know what? I think you're right. It's just something I'd not, a form I've not done a lot of or a move I've not done a lot of. And they will then open my mind up to those extra possibilities. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say, is just don't take your notes too seriously, because there's a large chance they won't be 100% accurate. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed that.